Just a reminder to our Speculating Wildly About Crime listeners, this is for entertainment purposes only and solely the thoughts and opinions of our team. We do invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Speculating Wildly About Crime. My name is Missy, and I am your host for this evening. We are going to talk about a very famous case today, and I want to check with the panel here and see how many of you have heard of the Springfield Three. I have. So pretty much everybody. Okay, because it is a very famous case. What we are going to do is we're going to look at some of the details of the case. We will talk suspects, but we're not going to go into their whole backstories. That's not what we're going to do, because I want to leave a lot more time for speculating. Are you guys ready to get started?
Yep.
Yeah? Good, because I'm ready. We're going to start on the day of graduation, which was June 6th, 1992. And it was graduation night for Kickapoo High School, which is located in Springfield, Missouri. Friends Stacy McCall and Suzie Streeter were excited to be able to go out and party with the rest of their friends and celebrate graduating. So that's what they did. They were going to a bunch of parties all around that. The girls had plans the following morning to go to a water park with their friend Janelle Kirby and her boyfriend Mike. And they had planned on spending the night at Janelle's house that night. And they were going to go leave that morning to get to the water park. But around 10:30, Stacy McCall calls her mom, Janice, and tells her that there had been a plan change. Actually, when they did go to Janelle's house, they realized it was super crowded. Family and friends were all there, and they just didn't really want to stay there for the night. So they had decided instead that they were going to go and stay at Susie's house. Suzie lived with her mom, Sherrill Levitt, and they lived at 1717 East Delmer Street, a home that the two had recently moved into, actually just 2 months prior to this. I should also note here that they didn't live alone. They had a Yorkshire Terrier that lived with them. Her name was Cinnamon. Suzie and Stacy arrive at the home somewhere around 2:15 to 3 a.m. The times are very varying. They don't really know exactly what time the girls arrived home. They do know they were last seen at around 2 a.m. They speculate that they were somewhere between that 2:15 and 3 o'clock time in the morning. They are fairly certain that the girls did actually get to the house because there was jewelry and that was left on the bathroom counter. And also it appeared that maybe the girls had washed their face of makeup. So around 8 a.m., Janelle and her boyfriend are starting to get a little worried because Suzie and Stacy were actually supposed to be at the house to leave for the water park, and they weren't able to get a hold of their friends. So they were starting to wonder what was going on. They decided that they were going to go to the house and check and see what was going on. When they do arrive at the Levitt house, they realize that all three cars are still there. Sherrill's, which is parked in the carport, Stacy's was there, and Susie's, which friends say was not parked in its usual spot that morning. And we're probably going to circle back to this, but some people also believed that maybe there was a car in the driveway that night, which means that she wasn't able to park in her usual parking spot. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have a usual parking spot at my house. So it makes sense that they would say, oh, she wasn't parked in her usual parking spot. And then I did send you guys a picture, and if you wanted to, you could check it, but there is a picture of the house. And I'm not quite sure if the house is still there today, but if you want to check and see what the house looks like, this will explain this next part a little bit better, because when they approached the front porch, they discovered that they had to have a lamp outside of the door. And that lamp is actually covered with a globe that's protecting the light bulb. But that globe was broken and glass was scattered all over that porch. But the light bulb itself was not broken. So just the outside part was broken. Now, Mike is trying to be a good guy. Now, this is, of course, Janelle's boyfriend. He decides he's going to help clean up the mess of the glass, but we don't really know if they could have cleaned up something, such as evidence. The Levitt home is unlocked, and Janelle does notice that not only are all the cars there, but 3 women's purses are actually still there. If the purses were in the bedroom, or if the purses were at the bottom of the stairs, or if the purses were in the living room, I've read all different things from various sources. Either way, all 3 of the women's purses were still in the house, and they looked to be lined up. So keep that in mind as well. So Janelle, okay, she's noticing these little bits of things, but she's not super concerned at this point. She's starting to think that maybe her friends just left and went to the water park without them. And okay, whatever. But there's nothing that's like ringing alarm bells just yet. Before they do leave, though, they do find the dog. So Cinnamon is okay. Cinnamon is actually locked in the bathroom. And the dog is very agitated. This is not a normal thing that Sherrill would do. And also before they leave, Janelle receives a phone call. Now, if you remember 1992 landline phone, the house gets a phone call. And there is an unknown male on the other end of the line making some sexual innuendos at her, which of course makes her feel uncomfortable. So she hangs up the phone. And immediately she gets a call back and it's the same guy. And she's just, what is up? And she hangs up the phone. That's so strange.
Right. Is it weird to answer somebody's phone?
Yes, especially when you think nothing is going on. If you're, it's already weird to be in their house, right? I was like, oh, we just go inside. Okay, that's what we do. And now we're answering the phone.
Maybe that just depends. I don't know much about Janelle's relationship with the mom. Maybe she just had this open door policy. I know a lot of parents, especially like in that 1990s time frame, like they had an open door policy, especially.
And maybe,
and I would like to say too that I don't know if your all's neighborhoods were like this, but growing up, there was always one house that all the kids just flocked to. And my house was that house. And no one knocked on the door at any time or day or night. I would come in and one of them would just be on their computer, or one of them would just be like waiting or watching TV. They would just get their own sodas or make their own sandwich. It was never, we expected that. My mom expected to come home and there'd be 27 kids. So what you're saying here would not be out of the norm for my house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
in the
in the 90s, things were a little different then.
but answering the phone, I think, would still be a little weird.
But things were different back in the 90s. It was
in the 90s, our favorite time is when the mail ran. Like what's coming in. Like when the phone rang, the suspense on who's on the other end.
And what I do know about Sherrill is just that she was a really nice person. She was well known. She was I didn't mention it yet, but she was a hairdresser. She was very popular in the town. She actually was the type of person that would, let's say you didn't have the money at the time to pay her, she would take a check and then cash it whenever it was okay to cash it. Because that's just the type of person she was. That being said, like maybe she just had that open door policy. I don't know. That's just a thought. But yeah, I do want to go back to Cinnamon for just a minute because of the fact that we know that she wasn't normally locked in the bathroom. And we will come back to all of this when we're talking theories, of course. But somebody might have knocked at her door that night and she might have just put the dog away in the bathroom just so the dog's not charging out the door. I know my dog likes to do that, especially if it's somebody knocking at the door. He wants to go see who it is and what's up. So maybe that was something that happened, or maybe whoever was the perpetrator did it. Okay, so several hours go by, and now Stacy McCall's mom, Janice, is starting to get concerned because she hasn't heard from Stacy all day. And she knows that Stacy is supposed to be staying the night over at the Levitt house. So she's, okay, I'm just going to go over there and see maybe if the girls are there or what's going on. She's getting concerned. So she gets to the house. And of course, like I said before, the door's unlocked. She enters the home as well. And she notices the purses, which to her, she's okay, that's really odd. Then she discovers that everything is still in the purses. So that's money, your keys, and most importantly is that Suzie and Sherrill smoked, and Sherrill was a big smoker. She was like a chain smoker. So she wouldn't have gone anywhere without her cigarette. And so now, at this point, Janice is really concerned. She is starting to panic. So it's at this time that she decides to call the Springfield Police Department. She decides she's going to report that all three of these women are missing. And I did read somewhere it was about 16 hours between the time they were last seen and then the time that The phone call came in. The police show up at the Levitt house sometime after 10:48 p.m. Here's the other problem. When the police do get there, the house is full of people. Full of people. It is
Like
estimated.
Chamonix.
Yes. So contamination literally everywhere. It's at least 10 to 20 people, they estimate, had already been in and out of that house. And these were all like friends and family members that were concerned and going over. And I'm not quite sure what they were doing there, but 10 to 20 people in and out of the house. So obviously everything's contaminated at this point. Okay, so I do want to point out a couple of things about that house as well. Like I said about the purses, everything was found inside of them. They looked like they were lined up. A location. Sherrill's purse contained $900 cash inside of it, which means that if somebody was trying to get there and rob her, they didn't take any money. So we know that for a fact. There also didn't appear to be a struggle of any kind. The only thing that was really off was that glow with the glass. The clothes that the girls were wearing that night were actually neatly folded. They were in Susie's room. And the only pieces of clothing that were missing were Stacy's underwear and her t-shirt, which just means that she was perhaps wearing those. We know the girls were probably getting ready for bed. Maybe she took her clothes off, folded them up, put them in Stacy's room, and next. And also Sherrill's bed was still made. So that just tells us that she hadn't gone to bed yet. So whatever happened had probably happened before she was in bed. And there's another thing that we do not know about Sherrill before this disappearance is that she was varnishing a piece of furniture that evening. And she was on the phone with one of her friends as she was doing that. And again, I read this somewhere that the friend had said that when Sherrill was varnishing this furniture, she had complained about the smell of it. I'm going to have to leave my window open. But when they did get there, the window wasn't open. So one of my sources was Crime Weekly podcast, who does a really good job and they're super in depth. But they had speculated maybe she was outside and somebody saw her. And again, we'll come back to whether this was a crime of opportunity or not. But she's alone. She's outside. Later at night when she's on the phone with her friend, that's also a possibility. Just throwing that out there for right now to come back to later. The last time her friend heard from her is when they got off the phone, and that was at around 11:30 p.m. So now we know that the girls were last seen at 2 a.m. and Sherrill was last heard from at 11:30 p.m. So Janice, we're going back to Janice, that was Stacy's mom, did mention though that when she was at the house before or after, actually, it could have been after as well, but she did check the voicemail and there was a weird message on the answering machine as well. And unfortunately, that also got erased before police got to it. And whether there's a clue on there or not, we'll never know because it is now gone for good. There was some kids in the area, whatever, making prank phone calls too around this time. I know in the 90s, that was like a big thing to do. If the person calling, making the sexual innuendos in the beginning was just this weird person. And then they left messages on the air, but it could have nothing to do with the case at all. But it all happened on that day. So, of course, we have to talk about it and see what we think.
And we can speculate about this later, but that is a little suspect to me. Like that I would hear that voicemail. I accidentally recorded it. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember what was on it.
Especially in the situation that you're currently in.
Things that I'll read doesn't necessarily mean that they're true, but you're digging into all of this case and there's this person saying this and this person saying this and whatever. But somebody said, what if the person who was guilty of this crime was watching the house and decided to call just to mess with people going in there? Maybe.
I was thinking something completely different. So for me, if there's a call, especially on events like graduate, like I was a bad teenager, I'm going to be open about it. However, in the 90s, you're at graduation, you're partying with your friends, you've got plans to go out early AF, in my opinion, to do something physically intense. That call might have been more of the, we need to re-up our drug order situation. So the person listening might have just been like, nope, delete.
That's interesting. Didn't think of that.
That's very interesting. Why didn't you keep that for a little bit? And we might circle back to that. That's really okay. You'll see why. We'll see like a little bit why I'm like, wait a minute. We might have solved the crime. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so that is literally all we know for that day. That's it. That's what we got. We do have several leads. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the leads right now. And this case, I should say, was made public immediately. The next day, it was in the newspaper. It was headline news, right? There's always people. There are always people that are going to call it tip line, right? That are going to say maybe false lead. I don't know, but we're going to say maybe. But we're going to talk about this first lead. And this came from an elderly neighbor who claimed to have seen a green van turning around in her driveway. And the driver of the van, according to the neighbor, resembled Suzie. Now, Suzie looked like she had been crying. And the woman also claimed to have heard a male voice from inside the van telling Suzie to not to do anything stupid and to just back out, meaning to back out of the driveway. Now, a similar green van was also spotted that same morning in a grocery store parking lot. So there was a green van in the area somewhere that morning.
So hang on. If you witnessed that, would you not call the police? I would think that's very strange and not normal. I wouldn't just put it in my back pocket
And then later bring it up.
put two and two together the next day.
I might not call though as it was happening, but once you hear that they're missing, then I would.
Unfortunately, you hear so many stories about there being like domestic or something like that. And people are like, I don't want to get involved. Not going to get involved. So that could be part of it too. Police did think that maybe this lead was credible, but they really don't have anything other than that. That's literally it for the green van. The one thing I wanted to mention in that though is that you could say she looks like Suzie, right? But the problem I have with that is if you look at any eyewitness accounts aren't always very credible. And Suzie she was a beautiful girl. But the one thing that kind of bothers me about this is that if you think of, again, thinking about the 90s, everyone had the same kind of hairstyle and it was cool to do the bleach blonde look. And there could be other people out there that looked like her. And whether or not it was her, obviously, we'll never know. But I just wanted to point that out too. In December of 1992, so a few months after this disappearance, a man did call America's Most Wanted hotline saying he had information about the case. But the call was disconnected when the operator tried to put the call through to investigators. And despite various pleas for the man to call back, he never did. So they did try to reach out to the public and say, hey, if you have this information, if you're this person that called and said, I have this information, please give us a call. But they never heard from him again. Yeah, I'll tell you, there are so many things in this case that just might tick you off. So there's like right now, it's okay. They cleaned up the glass and everyone was in and out of the house. And there's just a lot of things that maybe if that wasn't done a certain way, we could have solved this by now. But yeah.
I also didn't know that John Walsh covered this. Gonna go back and watch America's Most Wanted.
I didn't know that either. Okay. So we have to talk about the huge hospital rumor. I don't know if you guys remember this rumor, but journalist Kathy, and I'm not going to be able to say her last name, Kathy Baird, we're going to go with, received a tip that all three women were buried in the parking lot garage under the concrete of the Cox Hospital. So she hired a man named Rick Norland, who I believe was an engineer of some sort, but he had the ability to actually scan that garage and see what he could find. And so he scanned the south parking lot garage and he did find some. Actually, he found three somethings. He found two anomalies that were parallel and one was perpendicular. So three anomalies underneath this concrete. And they were roughly the same size. Now, when they brought this to the Springfield Police Department, the police did not believe there was enough evidence to actually go and dig up the garage, though they believed that, and part of the reason why is that they believed that construction of the garage actually happened in 1993, so a year later, after the women went missing. So they said, If they were buried in there, we would have found them when they were doing all the construction and digging it up.
Is that an accurate date, though? Do we know that in 1993 we broke ground, or was the construction going on for a very long time and maybe broke ground long before that? Maybe the area was roped off before 1993.
See, I don't know that.
Or even, does it have to be a construction site for you to bury somebody there?
It's in concrete or under concrete.
It would be under the concrete. So under the garage. So where the garage floor is, it would be under.
But where did this initially come from? Like before they had somebody come out and look, that's a totally random.
That's true. I don't know the source of it. Yeah.
It was the tip that this journalist was given is all I got. I don't even think they named who said it. It was just a tip from somebody.
What are the 3 anomalies then? They just never dug them up?
They never dug them up. No. Springfield police did not think it was a valuable bit of evidence. And
weren't they doing like a GoFundMe to dig it up at some point, or like trying to raise some money for it? I feel like I remember.
I don't know if it was the police, though. It probably would have been the journalist.
Right. No, it wasn't police.
Yeah, it would have been Kathleen.
Was Kathleen Zellner?
No? Yes. Okay. No, Kathy.
No, if it was her, we would have already dug that up.
Yeah, it would have been solved already. How come in 1992 is there a long list of suspects? We'll start with that. There is a list of men who have very terrible criminal backgrounds that we are going to talk about. Like I said, I'm not going to dive deep into their history and their background. I'm just going to very briefly skim over some of this stuff and why they're a suspect in this case. But on the top of this list is going to be Bart Streeter. Now, Bart is actually Susie's older brother and Sherrill's first child. And he didn't have a great relationship with his mom or sister. They were actually estranged. He hadn't been to the new house that they said they had just moved into. In part, that was due to Bart's partying lifestyle. Bart was very much into drinking, drank a lot of alcohol, did a lot of partying. There also was some word that Bart got into a big fight with Suzie about one of her ex-boyfriends, who we'll also talk about in just a minute. But his behavior after they went missing also got strange to the point of he just went downhill after that, started drinking more. But let's think about that before we actually say anything else. Of course, his mom and sister just went missing, and he didn't have a relationship with his dad either. His dad was long gone at this point. But yes, his drinking got a little bit more in his older years. He actually was arrested for false imprisonment and disorderly conduct. And there's a couple things like that in his background. Personally, I just think that his strange behavior was probably due to his heavy drinking, maybe because his sister and mom went missing. And honestly, I don't think that he had anything to do with this case. The police did clear him of any involvement, but he is a name that's often brought up. Let's go on to another person whose name is Larry Dwayne Hall. And Larry did own a van that was similar to the one that the eyewitness had thought she saw Suzie in. The other thing about Larry was he was a huge Civil War reenactment buff who had traveled to Battlefield, Missouri, which is actually where the girls were out partying that night. It wasn't clear whether he was doing a Civil War reenactment that summer in Battlefield or not, but he has been known to go to Battlefield for these reenactments. So he's been there. The girls have obviously been there. So maybe he's maybe seen them at some point or whatever. But the other thing about Larry is that he is a suspected serial killer of up to at least 45 women, most of them still missing.
45?
45.
Not 4, not 5, 45.
45.
How have we not all heard this name?
I don't know. 45, though, and most of these people are still missing.
Is he just like a catch-all where we don't know what happened? Let's just say this guy. It's like the Israel Keys of it all.
And that's the thing. Yeah. Blame Israel. He did it. That makes sense. So now we're going to get a little bit to more plausible suspects, we'll say. We have Steve Garrison next, and he was a person of interest early on in this case. He had charges in his background, such as robbery, drug dealing, sexual assault, and overall, he was just a shitty person. That's what I wanted to write about him. He was facing some trouble with the law and told investigators that he knew where the women were buried. And he said that one of his friends had murdered them and told him of the location. So in order to almost like to cut himself a deal of some sorts with police, he said he would show them. So he brought them out to some farmland. Now, when he was out on that farmland attempting to show them where the women were buried, he escaped police custody. And he was ran away. And this is where he would break into another young woman's home. He held her captive for 10 days and he would sexually assault her. He did eventually get caught and get sent to prison. But whether or not he did know anything at all, probably not, I'm going to say. He was probably just using whatever information he saw on the news or read in the newspaper and was trying to cut himself a deal. Wow. That brings us to Gerald. Oh gosh. Hanahan? I'm not sure if I'm saying that last name right. Carhan. Gerald was the prime suspect of a murder of a 20-year-old woman in Springfield, Missouri. He also controlled drug trafficking in the area, which I said we'd circle back to. He and Steve, I want to say, were both members of a motorcycle club called the Galloping Goose Club.
What? No, that's not real.
That's
Nobody names their motorcycle games bats.
Yes, they were the Galloping Goose Club.
No,
Fake,
I'm not
fake
here.
news.
that's right up there with Hell's Angels. They're like rival groups, obviously.
But you guys, that was my name for this podcast. And you guys turned me down and no. But so anyway, when we talked about them though, we did mention a little bit earlier about the drug thing. And so that's really interesting with the phone call. If you want to bring that right back to that phone call to the house, if you're thinking that the phone call could have been, oh, your drugs are ready. We've got 2 men in our suspect list that were known drug dealers. Yeah, interesting. Now, Gerald did spend a few years in prison. He set fire to a rival business, and he also has a past history of kidnapping women. Like I said, some of these suspects are they have these terrible backgrounds, and they're all in the same area at the same time, which is messed up. And next, we are going to talk about Suzie's ex-boyfriend, Dustin Rekla. She had a pretty tumultuous relationship with this guy. Now, they were young, but he, again, from what I looked into and read about him, he was also not that great of a guy. He, at least from what I've read, so we'll say allegedly beat her up. She also had a restraining order against him at the time. And he bothered her at work, school, and at her house. Now, whether this was still going on when they moved, I'm not quite sure. I know it had happened in the past. But the thing about Dustin, which makes him a pretty good suspect besides those things, and besides the fact that he knew Suzie and obviously Sherrill, and actually he probably knew all 3 of them, but besides that part, is that Dustin and some friends had broken into a mausoleum right before this happened and stole some gold teeth off of the bodies that were in this mausoleum.
We're classy people.
We're keeping it classy around here. Stole the gold teeth. And when Suzie found out about this, she reported the crime to the police. And then she also told her mother. So both her and her mother knew, they told on them. And these, Dustin and his 2 friends were actually they were supposed to go to trial for this. And she was supposed to testify against him. Suzie was. Of course, right before they go missing. Okay. And last but not least, well, I shouldn't say that, but we are going to talk about the person that kind of, I think, I know Dustin's pretty high up there on my list for sure, but this person's pretty high up there as well. So we have Robert Craig Cox. Now, he was a known kidnapper. He also was convicted on a murder charge in Florida. This was a few years prior to the disappearance of these women. Now, I'm not going to talk about the details of that case, but it is pretty messed up too, by the way. All I'm going to say is that this was pretty shitty. They didn't have the evidence to keep him. So because they didn't have the evidence, it was overturned and he was set free, which of course brought him to Springfield, Missouri. And Robert did have a possible tie to Stacy McCall. So Stacy McCall's dad and Robert both worked together at a car dealership in Springfield. And Stacy and her sister sisters were known to visit their dad at work. So it is highly possible that Robert had seen Stacy at some point. Whether I know that the dad for sure didn't remember Robert, whether or not Robert saw her, he had to have seen her at some point. You would think if these girls are coming into this car dealership. Robert was questioned and he was able to provide police with an alibi for the night of June 6th and for the morning of June 7th.
Give it to me. This is bullshit.
Wait till you hear it. Okay, so June 6th was the night or the last time they were seen, right? June 7th is when they discovered that they were actually missing. But June 6th, he was at home asleep at his parents, and his parents had gone to bed. And they then also said that he was home. Whether or not he stayed home, no one knows.
How is that an alibi? You're taking the word of somebody who's sleeping?
Mom and dad said he was sleeping, so that's where he was. The next morning, his girlfriend at the time also said that he went to church with her. So that was his alibi for the morning of June 7th.
Or she did, so she didn't get killed too. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Here's the thing. The girlfriend later recanted this statement, leaving Robert with no alibi for June 7th. Now, Robert, at the time of the disappearances, Jamie, you're going to love this part, was working as an electrician, which leaves some people to speculate. And when we'll talk about theories, we will. But this leads some people to speculate that he had maybe knocked on the door using his electrician status as a ruse to get them out of the house. Do you remember? Okay. We will. I don't want to go too far into that right now.
Okay.
We'll come back to that as well. Now, Robert has also been known to bring up and talk about the case, even once saying that he knows that the women are dead and they'll never be found. He's also said that this is not his theory. He just knows, and he refuses to say anything else about it until his mother dies. By the way, his mother is still alive. As of right,
garbage.
As of right now, she's still alive. So he will not tell us what he knows. He is currently in prison facing some other charges. At least for the majority. Most of these men that we all were on the suspect list of kidnapping, murder, pieces of shit, they are in prison. So there's that. Okay, so those were our suspects, right? The list of suspects. There is one other option, and that would be stranger. Somebody that nobody knows, right? This completely looks like a crime of opportunity. Maybe she was varnishing outside and somebody was like, oh, she's alone. It's dark out, whatever, thinking Sherrill is the main target, right? There's that. Or maybe somebody saw the girls at the party and decided to follow them back. Or, and this wasn't mentioned anywhere, which I'm like, okay, we know for sure that Stacy called her mom, Janice, and told her mom what was up. I've seen so many places where it says no one knew they were going to go stay at the Levitt house, right? But Janice knew. So let's say you're at parties and stuff and you're changing your mind. You're like, oh, we're just going to go stay at Susie's house tonight, whatever. How many people at the party knew where they were? But those are a couple other options. There could have been those kids. It could have been a stranger, crime of opportunity, all of those things. The other option is that we had talked about Sherrill she was single. I don't know if maybe she was dating somebody. Maybe she had somebody over, all of those. There are a couple other options besides these people.
I got a couple things. So you said that they had only been in this house for 2 months.
Yes.
I wonder who lived there before.
And that could be another.
I like that.
Second, I want to talk about how it seems to me It would be very hard for one person to pull this off alone.
I originally thought that until we fast forward to today, and Brian Kohlberger murdered 4 people with a knife.
Thank you. So
So,
literally
okay.
said the same thing.
Last thing is, so I feel like this has to be a Suzie and Sherrill thing.
Yeah.
And Stacy just got caught in the.
I agree with.
I'm there with you. Yep.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, you would just be like, I'll just wait until she's alone, or unless, like the stranger theory, that it wouldn't have mattered. If it was a targeted situation, I would think more the Suzie Sherrill side of it than Stacy.
So you think mother and daughter rather than going after the 2 teenagers?
Yeah, but just because I would be like, I'll wait till that other girl goes back home. That's a lot of work.
I do it that night.
A lot of clean.
And
Either-
that's
and I feel like, sorry, I keep adding more things to my list, but I
good.
feel like whatever happened to them did not happen at the house.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
Yeah,
that
there would have been more out of place.
Yeah. That is actually a really interesting thing that I wanted to circle back to, but is the fact that those girls were not supposed to be there then. We're talking Suzie and Stacy. They were not supposed to go home that night. They were supposed to go stay at Janelle's house. And then in a lot of places, and especially when I first started looking into this case, like that just screamed that Sherrill was the target. She's home alone. It's graduation night. Her daughters
Right.
are partying. They're not supposed to be
Right.
home. Sherrill was, like I said before, a hairdresser. She was very well known in town. She was attractive. Like maybe that's too. It could have been, and I forgot to mention that in my little stranger part here, but it could have just been one of her clients or somebody who had something for her for a while and they saw it as an opportunity to.
And I would say if she was probably known to have a lot of cash on her, but the cash wasn't taken.
Nope, they didn't take the cash.
So I still go back to Missy. We had talked about this case previous, right?
Yeah.
And I do still this theory, and I think it was your theory, but I'm going to put it out here. Sherrill was single, right? And she was hot, and she knew her kids were going to be out of town. But what if they walked in on her being raped, and they were like, "What is going on?" And he was like, "Everybody, shut up! Pull your purses down. We're all leaving right now."
Like, I don't know how you can control 3 people.
Yeah, but Janelle, if somebody has a gun on you and it's me, you, and Missy, I'm not going to do anything to fuck it up because I don't want you to get murdered.
So when you said that, Robert actually has an answer for you. Robert Frank.
I'm sure he
does. He does. Do you know
okay,
what
Robert?
You know what Robert says? Robert says that you have a gun. He will do whatever you want.
100% wrong.
Him showing up at the same time the girls are getting ready for bed.
Yeah.
Is mom not already asleep? Did she stay up for them since she found out they were going to come home?
So I don't know if mom knew the girls were going to come home. I know that Stacy's mom knew the girls were coming home. Obviously, we don't know what Sherrill knew because Cheryl's been missing for 30
Guys,
years.
you just got to hang out with Janelle. That's your story.
That was the story. Should have stayed with Janelle.
I just watched like a sex trafficking movie. So keep that in mind. Here's my wildly speculating thing. So what if Sherrill was in, or her and a boyfriend or whatever were in some type of sex ring or something. And then when the girls came home, her and her boyfriend took the 2 girls at some point to go, oh, let's go. And again, wildly speculating.
Yesterday, I sent you all a picture. So I want you guys to go and click on that link that I sent you. I told you not to look until now.
Oh, this one. Okay.
You got
Yeah.
to.
Oh my God.
Do you see what I see? Or see what I'm showing you? Do you remember the story of Amy Lynn Bradley?
The girl on the cruise ship from Disappeared?
Yes. So this was, I want to say, on the same website. Somebody on the
Same eye, like her eyes are the same. Her lips are not the same though. Like her
So
mouth.
the one thing about Suzie is I guess she was born with a tumor on her lip. So her lip has a special shape. But do you see what I'm seeing?
It's very uncanny.
I definitely thought so.
So
Ooh,
these are the first two pictures that we're looking at, or first four pictures, right? And I guess I can see some similarities, right?
Definitely see it in the eyes.
so the top pictures, right?
Diagonal.
That's the escort. And the next one over, Suzie. The one on the bottom, that's Suzie. And that's the one. And the next one's the escort. The one with the curly hair would be the escort.
In both?
Yes, those are both the escorts photos. The other two are of
these
Suzie.
are
They're just
Suzie.
using those as comparing photos.
Gotcha. Okay. But here's where, okay.
Go
The
back.
nose is weird, right? Look at her nose.
Yeah, the
And then look at this nose.
But I feel like she's got her head tilted away in this one, and everything else is a straight on photo of her nose. And her head at this is tilted. So you can't really, this whole thing underneath that is from Amy
Oh, this is a girl that went missing on the cruise ship.
on the cruise ship. Yeah.
Oh,
Comparing the same thing, if you don't know that case, is that this
Yeah.
woman, Amy Lynn Bradley, went missing on the cruise ship, and then some people thought they saw her photo on this website, but that's what that is. And this is the thought here, is that maybe the same thing happened, at least with Suzie. We talk about the girls were getting ready for bed. They were taking their makeup off, their jewelry, they did their pajamas, blah, blah, blah. But Suzie and Sherrill had this awesome relationship. They were really close. It was just the two of them. And Cinnamon. We can't forget Cinnamon, but it was them, and they were like best friends. And one of the things that I did hear about them is that every night before bed, even when she was out late, Suzie would go into her mom's bedroom and say goodnight to her, which is another thing that brings us back to the theory that if Sherrill was the target, maybe this person was in there, maybe sexually assaulting her or whatever they were doing. And Sherrill was trying to be quiet because, oh my God, my daughter is close and she needs to protect her daughter. And she's probably, if that was the case, she's thinking, oh my God, my daughter's going to come in here. Can you imagine? To me, that's absolutely terrifying.
but also teenage girls are loud. They would be laughing and like cutting up and talking about crazy stuff that happened that night. It's not.
He would have known.
He completely broke a curfew. Then maybe they were super quiet about in.
I can see how maybe one person, male or female, could be intimidated enough alone to sit down and shut up and do what this bad person is saying. But three people,
Then I think we go back to the election, right? So this guy had the electrician badge. He was an asshole. He had multiple charges. He's in jail right now, right? Why couldn't it be that? And maybe the girls were the target, maybe they weren't. Maybe it was just a happenstance where he was like, whatever, I'm just going to knock on this door and see what happens. Oh, jackpot, there's 3 women here. I'm going to get them all, and I'm going to go under the guise of, hey, something's going on in your house. I need you all to come with me. Gets him outside and says, get in this car right now. And that's where the neighbors here back it up or whatever they heard.
that
And then he takes them somewhere.
that I can see more than someone being in a sexual position. And
Yeah, because to your point, that would be trauma. And you would scream and you would do something.
If that was the case, wouldn't you put your clothes on?
Not if he said, hey, the house is going to blow up.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just that naive when you're
Get out of here now. It's going to
I
blow.
would have at least grabbed. They were
Bathroom.
like piled up neatly. I would have at least
and the
grabbed,
purses were lined up. That was weird too.
grabbed
Okay.
my stuff or grabbed my purse on the way out the door. I don't feel like this was like a sneak attack where there was just no
Yeah.
time.
And if the electrician said that, to Missy's point, I would grab my dog. I wouldn't lock him in the bathroom.
So the purses is another thing that I want to ask about, because I think Missy said, and then Jamie also just said they were lined up. So my thing is, was it lined up in like a designated place? I know that like when you walk into my family home, there's like that bench where if you take off your shoes, there's a place to hang your jackets. People would just stack their purse.
I don't know anybody that doesn't have designated. This is where my purse lives when I'm here.
teenage girls are coming home from whatever it is they're doing, are they like, oh, I'm going to put my purse here, and you put yours here, and you put yours here, or are you just coming in and be like, I'm taking my purse off and throwing it down and wherever it lands?
No, I think it's just David, we do this. This is something we do. It's
It is.
And you'd put them together just so that they're together. And if you were getting ready to do something in the morning, you might like, okay, I'm going to put everything right here.
And that's my question is where were they located? Were they located at the front door and it is in the area? Were they located on the bathroom sink?
It's not like you're going to walk in and put them on like David's saying, put them in that. It was like a weird spot.
there
Maybe
might have
there's
been
one
like an entryway table or
So the other thing, now I did share this. I think this was from 2015.
I still keep what was the deal with the galloping gooses or
Oh, they were a motorcycle club. There were 2 men in our suspect list that were members of that club. They were the club was known for doing allegedly some drug dealing. Yeah.
I just
Dean.
keep thinking this is a lot for one person with no mess, no struggle, no nothing. Like I am either going with the goose guys or the teeth stealers.
That was Dustin. So Dustin and his friends, which would have been the ex-boyfriend.
I
Yes.
just Googled them though, and there is a Galloping Goose motorcycle club, but they're in California. Oh, and they have operated with
They don't look
impunity
like
in
aggressive.
Kansas City, Missouri.
What does that mean?
They've been involved in crimes ranging from motorcycle theft to drug dealing to assaults and intimidation. The Goose remained small and isolated, allowing members to fly under police radar.
But
That's-
what would their motivation be?
If it was a drugs situation, then
And my other
So was the mom dealing drugs?
I know I wouldn't say Sherrill was, but what I thought of too is, again, she's got all these clients. She had up to 250 clients at one point. She was very popular in her hairdressing stuff. Maybe she saw something, maybe something that she wasn't supposed to see.
I'm putting myself in this situation. If it's somebody I know, I'm going to fight back because I'm like, this person, you have been a guest in my home. Like you're not going to really hurt me. The only way I'm going to actually abide if it's a stranger situation or if it's somebody that I'm really scared of. The most intriguing suspect to me is ex-boyfriend just because she was about to testify.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing, they're teenage boys, like 17, you want to say? Maybe 19 at the I don't know how old the other friends are.
Who else was in this operation?
How are you going to get away with this kind of crime when you're 3 teenage boys, probably not professional murderers yet?
How many cases have we covered and how many cases are we going to cover of us underestimating the teenage mind and the
That's
teenage threat?
Between attempting that
back
you're going to get
to-
caught doing right away and then doing something in this kind of case where there's no evidence whatsoever and it's unsolved for 31 years. And you've got 3 boys, let's just say. I'm not friends with people I went to high school with. Yeah, how long are you going to hold that secret for? That Dustin did it, but you're going to be best friends with him for this long and not tell anybody?
Got it. What drives me crazy about all these missing person cases? Somebody knows and they're not saying something or they're dead.
The other boys, let's just one, not a psychopath, usually. But it would never pop into my head that, hey, I want to go dig this up and get the
To
teeth.
steal some teeth.
But if my bestie's dad is super sketch low life, gave this idea or said, hey, go do this to me and I'll give you some weed or whatever. I just wonder if it was bigger than just them.
Like
No,
it was
it's
part
not-
of a whole like drug ring
Yeah.
type thing.
Maybe not even drugs. I think they just didn't want her to testify.
I will say, I mean, there is a motive there.
Let's
There's
just say
definitely a
it was
motive
one of their dads or uncles or even Tony from whatever, the corner store. What if he thought if she testifies against them, then I'm going to get caught? What if it was a whole chain
And this makes me,
Situation.
Sure.
I want to
Yeah.
know who they told. Did they tell anybody at that party or at any of the parties that they had changed their mind and they were going to go stay at Susie's house? Because if they didn't,
It had
then
to.
we're back to Sherrill being the main person. But if they did, then people know they're going to that house. Because
I feel like I
if
don't know.
If we're thinking that Susie was part of the target,
I'm
she
just thinking as Jamie at that age and you're drinking, you're doing whatever, like you're going to blurt your plans out loud.
It's hard to keep a secret like this for that long. But when it comes to straight men, that's what is counted inside of men is you don't express this. That's why I think this kind of shit was very much a secret.
This is like way left field off topic, but
I like
just
it.
in a general sense, is that why we have less serial killers and more like mass shootings now?
And I think a little bit to that point is we live in a society of we want a quick fix, whether that's a quick fix of knowing information right away or a quick fix of alleviating my pain right away because I can shoot you or because I can shoot 8 of you.
I keep going back to the point that there was no sign of a struggle. Like, I don't care in what situation, if I'm awake and you come in, if I'm asleep and you wake me up, like I'm going to knock something over. I'm going to make some kind of a mess just out of natural.
I know that a lot of you have been struggling a little bit. Janelle, for sure. Since going on Janelle.
Always struggling.
Yeah, you've been struggling with the idea of, okay, there's no struggle. There's 3 women versus maybe 1 man. Why are they all listening to one guy? I'm going to fight. And I totally understand exactly what you're saying. But
Give me a scenario.
I'm going to tell you right now, there are 3 of us in here that are parents. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am being a parent, especially if I'm here and Ember and her best friend are in here. And some guy comes in with a gun and he says, do whatever I tell you or I'm going to kill your daughter. I'm going to try to find a plan. I'm going to be thinking of some plan, right? But if I totally believe that he is going to kill my daughter if I don't do what he says, I'm going to do whatever I can do to protect her. And if that means I am listening at this time, right now, I'm getting in that van or getting in that car or I'm getting
You're right.
murder me, let my daughter go. You know what I mean? But I wanted to say, if somebody comes into your house and they're like, I'm going to kill your dog right in front of you, Janelle, come with me. It doesn't mean like you're completely giving up. You are maybe thinking of a backup plan. Maybe I'm going to bust the globe out or whatever on my way out.
Other people here with me,
But these are
I was going to say, but what if they're terrified and paralyzed?
these are 2 young teenage girls that have probably been drinking.
Was it typical for them? I think we talked about this earlier. Was it typical for them to put the dog in the bathroom if they were leaving to try to keep the dog separate from the rest of the house? If someone came in that they knew and were like, oh, I don't know what kind of story they could come up with, but we got to go. They put the dog in the bathroom. They all leave with them.
So what if boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, somebody like was starting a fight. So he broke the globe outside, and then they all rushed out to go, what the fuck are you doing? And then that's because that's why there was no struggle in the house. And maybe when they were like going to argue with him or something, and maybe they put the dog in the whatever to not be part of the fight or run away or who knows.
Yeah.
And so then they're all out there and they're just supposed to be arguing. You'd think someone would have seen it, but who knows? And then somehow then they get them in a van or whatever. I don't know. But that would make you drop everything if someone's like at your front door argumentative.
Causing
And the girls might be like, I'm protecting my mom.
That's interesting. Oh, yeah.
It's just, I've 3 people.
Like,
That's right?
Angela, don't we say the same thing when there's a bank robbery? We're like, there's 12 of you. We always think there's power in numbers, but there's also power in fear.
Suzie and Sherrill were declared legally dead in 1997. As of right now, they're still missing people, especially Stacy, because her mom, Janice, still believes that Stacy is out there somewhere. So in that case, for sure.
The brother, I'm assuming, got that insurance.
That I don't know either.
Is it up to the family to say we're fine with declaring someone dead? How does that happen?
Isn't it 7 years? That was only 5. I did notice that it was shorter than.
Usually 7 years, but there's other things. Must have been missing from their home or usual residence for an extended period.
Most commonly 7 years. Okay, so Janelle, you're very much thinking it was Dustin, so the ex-boyfriend,
I think
or
it was,
that group in general.
I think it was Dustin and whatever people he hung around with. I don't think it was like just the high school boy. I think they were involved with something else. It's the logical thing. If she was about to testify and Stacy was her best friend, so maybe she knew stuff too. And her mom, obviously, maybe it was like, we got to get them all. Maybe they were at the party and said, hey, Janelle sucks. You should know to stay over there. Yeah, I'm not touring on this hill, but I'm venturing onto this hill just to check it out.
I think that some of them were just victims for being there expectedly.
I agree with
I
those.
think
Yeah.
there's a certain target. They want to, there's more people here. We got to get them all.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Cindy, it's you.
The ex-boyfriend or I guess I was thinking the ex-boyfriend was Cheryl's boyfriend, not
Oh,
one
no.
of the daughters.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it was like somebody like that. And then, yeah, either wrong place, wrong time, or for everyone else. And I don't know. There's no good answers. That's why it's still unsolved.
Carolina, you're next.
I don't know. I feel like it's either the mom was targeted and the girls were not supposed to be there. I don't necessarily know who, but they just got too far into it and then had to eliminate everyone, or it's somebody they know. And I don't know if it was the ex-boyfriend. I don't think they'd go anywhere willingly with that person. I struggle with the fact that there wasn't a struggle as well. I can definitely see the gun on the kid, do what I say kind of thing. And depending on somebody's mindset, if they don't know cases or true crime things, of don't go to a second location ever, like that rule that you hear on all the true crime, like things we listen to.
Now,
They may just willingly go. I don't know. I think it's either somebody that they knew that somehow got them out of the house and they didn't think anything bad was going to happen, or the mom was the target and the girls got caught up.
Yeah.
What about
I am so there. This case really messes with my head. I do really feel strongly that it could be Sherrill as the target as well, just because the girls were not supposed to be there. And that was like a big thing for me. I feel like Dustin has the most motive out of any of these people that we're talking about. Dustin definitely looks good for it. But I also do like this theory that maybe Robert was an electrician and Robert worked with Stacy's dad. And I don't know. I'm not saying that Stacy was the target at all, but maybe he did get them out of the house by either saying there was a gas leak or something and you gotta go quick and whatever. But honestly, this case, I don't know how I feel in the end of this. All I know is that that's why it's obviously popular, is we don't know. There's nothing to go on. Unfortunately, of course, everything that could have been evidence was destroyed within the first not even 24 hours, which is really frustrating. And honestly, Robert could just be a red herring and he talks a lot and wants attention. That could be it too. But hopefully we'll find something out. But it's been 31 years already. If you guys have any information on what happened to Sherrill Levitt, Stacy McCall, or Suzie Streeter, I do have a phone number for the Springfield Police Department, and that is 417-864-180. So if anybody does have any information, it's been 31 years. Let this case rest already, right? Unfortunately, right now we don't know, and all we can do is speculate wildly.
We don't want you to miss any of our future recordings. Please take this time now to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at SWACPod. That's SWACPOD. Or you can contact us via email for any questions, comments, or case ideas at swacpod@gmail.com. Thank you for speculating wildly with us tonight.